Alright, so here we are for episode number 5 of our Season 2 career mode. And we're in China this time, and I'm not sure if it'll show up on this screen. But, we did get the, name changer to work partially? I don't know. Well, we did get it to work partially. You can see it in the main menu. The only issue is that AlphaTauri, Connor Sport, still showing as AlphaTauri instead of Connor Sport, as well as Alfa Romeo is still showing default Alfa Romeo instead of Sauber, where we got Quadrant McLaren, Mercedes, Ineos, Gulf Williams, Aston Martin, Honda, all those names to work, but the AlphaTauri and the Alfa Romeo livery or names don't work as of yet. So if you guys do see that in practice in quali or quali and during the race, just know that we're still trying to troubleshoot the fixes for that. But coming into this weekend, we're gonna have rain for qualifying and then a dry race. So I feel pretty confident with our setup. And yeah, so we're gonna get right into practice and then qualifying. Alright, here we are qualifying in China. And not a lot of data, so not really some good times here. 137 on the hards, 136.2 on the mediums, and 135.2 on the softs. You can see the positions there on the left side, as we're going to be coming around that final corner ahead of the Ferrari in 134.8. So we did find a little bit of time on the softs compared to practice, as we have some pretty warm weather. We could have gone a little bit better on the second run here in qualifying 1, but that's going to be good enough for us to get into Q2 for a provisional P6. So 3 rows back from the start, looking okay. And Q2 now, myself and Schumacher making it through. Did a little bit of overcast coming through as we had our first run sitting a 134 flat. So we're still finding that time compared to practice. Then our final run for Q2, not really any improvements other than sector 3, about 0.2 back, or 0.2 improvement. Good enough for us to get Q5 provisional and slot into Q3, but our teammate doesn't make it. But unfortunately for Q3, it is in the rain. I believe this is one of the first qualifying sessions that we've had in the rain, as we set a 1:45.030, and then our final time coming through for sector 3 in qualifying 3, we have an improvement of about 0.3.
Ready for tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who'll be fronting the grid. Verstappen, Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
Alright, yeah, so the rain played part that we weren't really expecting. I know we were going to have rain involved in qualifying, but I wasn't expecting it in Q3. And yeah, so rain in China not so great, as we're 0.6 back behind Yuki Tsunoda there in P9. Lewis Hamilton was able to improve to P8. He went out on the softs on our early run. I don't know if you guys noticed that on our times up there on the top left during that run. But yeah, Max Verstappen leading the grid by 4/100ths of a second. Charles Leclerc leading the front row. Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris second row. And then George Russell, Sergio Perez, Pierre Gasly, our rival, still doing a little bit better than us. And our current rival, Sergio Perez, up there in P6. So hopefully our setup is good enough. And we have a full dry race for the 20 or so laps that we're doing. So let's get right to the main race.
The Chinese Grand Prix then is upon us once again. It's a race that saw Michael Schumacher claim his final Formula One victory in 2006, as well as Red Bull's first win with Sebastian Vettel in 2009. There's no doubt there's plenty more drama to come, here in Shanghai. Shanghai International Circuit then is a 16-corner high-speed thrill ride. The long and ever-tightening right-hander at turns 1 and 2 tests a driver's patience. The flats, open to the elements location, test their skill in a crosswind. 2 DRS zones will assist passing, and they're available into turn 1 and down the kilometre-long back straight into turn 14. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Sainz, Norris, Russell, Perez, Gasly, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Johnson, Oscar Piastri, Jackson, Magnussen, Mick Schumacher, Joe, Ocon, Sargent, Hulkenberg, Mayer, and Valtteri Bottas begins the race from the back of the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Anthony Davidson also joins me in the commentary box today. Now, can I get your take on Max Verstappen? That was a great win in the last race, but can they keep that momentum going into this weekend?
There are never any guarantees in this business, but certainly the performance last time out would have boosted their confidence coming into this one.
All right, so here we are in China, looking forward to this race. And yeah, so ever since I live streamed and commentary for Invictus Racing League, they raced in China towards the end of their season. And I was looking forward to this race and swapping it over for Season 2. So you guys saw in qualifying, we weren't really doing so well on those intermediate tires. We're starting in P10. And yeah, so not really too worried about that. But yeah, there's not much else to say about that. Drop our fuel load and get right into this.
The formation lap gets underway then, and it's going to be interesting today to see how the dry conditions could affect the lifespan of the tyres. So as all the cars take their positions on the grid, the teams will be hoping their strategies pay off for them in today's race. The question I'm asking is which teams have got it right, which ones have got it horribly wrong?
All right, so we are coming through the end of our formation lap, and could have been a better start than what I was wanting there in Q3, having the rain. But yeah, so hoping the launch is a lot better than we've done in qualifying. You see the last of the cars coming up to the grid for the end of our formation lap. And then our 5 red lights are coming off, starting P10 behind Yuki Tsunoda and ahead of Oscar Piastri. We're off to an okay launch. The Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton ahead of us, moving to the outside. It's going to be a slow launch from the Red Bull, I believe, of Sergio Perez, as we're slotting 2x2, 3x3, as we end up on the outside, trying not to come in contact with anyone. I didn't want to end up hitting the brakes late and smashing into anyone, but we do end up on the inside of these next few turns here, as the McLaren and the McLaren and the Connor Sport end up ahead of us. So Piastri and Aiden Jackson, as we slot into P12 at this point. It's a loss of 2 positions, but we can always work for those positions later on in the race, as we're slotting in behind Aiden Jackson a lot better than I expected here. Is Q2 or Sector 2's doing a little bit better than Sector 1 did so far, as we're on these new softs. You can snap of oversteer there as we try to stay on the line, dealing with a lot of early dirty air, as we end up missing our braking point, not realizing how soon they would hit the brakes. And this long right-hander into the Sector 3 straight, the back straight, you'll see later on in the race, we lose a lot of time on this back straight, as we had a lot of trouble finding the braking point and then finding that perfect line. As you can see, Schumacher is behind us, so we're sitting P12, P13, as we're basically riding through the end of the first lap in a safe manner. As you can see, the Haas, Alfa Romeo Haas of Kevin Magnussen. So we almost go over the edge of the border there. Moving on to lap 5, the start of lap 5 now is when we're finally able to get some action. A little bit of space between Jackson and Piastri. We end up going wide, so we don't have to hit the brakes. And almost a little bit of contact there with Aiden Jackson. You can see him leaving there in the mirrors as we have a better launch out of that chicane. And then again, later on in the same lap, he catches up with DRS on the back straight. You just see how much time people can regain with DRS. As you can see, Schumacher closing up on us as well. Aiden Jackson has the inside. We have the outside. Therefore, we're going to have the inside on this next turn. We're going to be able to defend our position for P11 coming on to the start of lap 6. But there is another DRS straight on this main straight. So Jackson, you can see the time frame closing, and then he tries to make a move on the inside. Same as the last lap. But he has momentum. He has a DRS, and we're basically going to try to do the same thing. He ends up backing out and almost did a switchback on us because we weren't on the proper line. But we were able to hold this position for now. Moving on to, I believe, lap 8 or lap 9, and we're on board with Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. So he's coming through Sector 1, unless this was right ahead of us. Don't quite remember for sure, as he has an engine failure. So I believe that was lap 8, and you have Gasly there at the bottom of the roster with the DNF. As we're trying to make up time on Oscar Piastri, no pit stops yet for anybody, as we have closed the gap. And lap 9, we're coming in a lap early for our medium tires, and we're not going to be the only ones. So you have, I believe that was Jackson behind us, and the Alfa Romeo Haas of Magnussen as well, and Zhou as well there, as we're coming in first for our pit stop to the medium tires. And if you guys remember from the beginning of qualifying, we had pretty much the best position for the time on those mediums, so hopefully we can run these mediums pretty hard for the last part of this race, because we have a pretty big gap between us and Norris and the other people around us. Taking it easy coming back on. But at the end of lap 10, we get to see different position changes, and inevitably we ended up having a good undercut on Oscar Piastri and the other McLaren. You can see we're tailing behind Lando Norris and Sergio Perez. You see Piastri about 1.8 seconds behind us, 2 seconds or so as he was coming out of the pits. Magnussen, Schumacher, Zhou, Jackson losing a couple of positions from that, as we had to nurse the mediums as best as we could through sector 1 and 2 and get heat in the tires here in sector 3. But lap 14 now, Piastri is already caught up to us, 2/10 back, as we have trouble coming through that last right-hander. See him with DRS open, making a move on the inside. Is this is a very long straight, hitting the red line. The only other place we've hit the red line in our car was last season in Vegas with the Williams. So we're jockeying for position against Oscar Piastri for P8 at this point. And we come on to the main straight. We have DRS this time. We're going to be able to try to make another attempt, because we're less than 3/10 back. We're going to move him to the outside, move ourselves to the inside. Very good angle there. As we hold him off, try to keep him behind us as best as possible. As we're starting to feel these medium tires. We're feeling pretty good, even though Piastri had a lot of better time with that snap of lower steer there. He was able to stay with us. And then once again, this time we're going to be moving to the inside lane, forcing Piastri to the outside of this double right-hander with the DRS. We're going to be pushing him to the outside. That way we can try to defend a lot better here on lap 15. We end up going wide. He tries to do a switch back, but we end up getting the car as straight as possible to try and defend for this next home straight. Next start-finish straight, as he's going to have DRS. Let's see, he's about half a second back behind us, and we have about 6.5 seconds behind Lando Norris, as we're still fighting for P8. lap 16, and it feels like we've been fighting for this position ever since lap 12 or 13 when we came out of the pits and got our tires warmed up. Little another snap of oversteer there. Always coming through that sector, and yet again, this time Piastri is closer. We're going to be holding the outside line this time. We decide to not fight it, let him have the inside, and see what we can do about it. As we moved to the outside, and we managed to hold him off. So he waited for our move, and he didn't make a dive bomb. So it's good on his part. Oscar Piastri waiting for another opportunity to try to fight us for P8, going over the curves there a little bit, and yeah, so 3/10 back on the main straight, and this time we're actually able to defend a lot better on the outside. As you guys know, we like to brake late, and he didn't have the room to make the move there. We didn't end up cutting him off like we did a few laps ago. So still, lap 17, Piastri is right on me, and 6.3 seconds behind us and Norris. So as we're fighting, we're starting to gain a little bit of time on Norris, but there we go. 6.7 seconds. We go on the outside again. That way we have the inside of a double right-hander, and this time we have to really make it count, so we stay up against Piastri as best as we can in this McLaren and the Aston Martin. As I don't quite remember where they're at on the chart for upgrades, but we managed to defend him off about a half second back as we cross the timing line. He's getting DRS, but we're able to defend him this time through Sector 1 and Sector 2. And our last chance for defending P8 comes down to the last final straight. So we're coming around this corner. You see that he stayed behind us the whole entire time. So we ended up having a good launch into that main straight in order to keep him back far enough. That way we didn't have to worry about him. But it all comes down to this. Lap 20. He has DRS. Piastri coming up on us. We're holding the outside line. And yeah, not quite close enough for him to get that inside line move. And we stay on the outside line and carry enough speed to hold our P8 position to finish our first time around here in China in F1 23.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
It's victory in Shanghai, and what a victory it is after an incredible Grand Prix. And talk to me. What do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalize on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
And here we are, a team that is no stranger to the podium, taking their place on top once again. A sublime race today, and a stunning win for Ferrari. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Max Verstappen should be pleased with his performance, making gains at the top of the table. Well, after an incredible day of racing, who was your driver of the day, Ant?
Carlos Sainz would be my first choice for this race. He had excellent race stamina, giving him the opportunity to charge through the ranks.
Let's move on to the constructors. Mercedes continue to extend their lead. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
All right, so first half of the race wasn't that eventful, as we were having trouble on those soft tires. Really losing a lot of grip through those S's, and really losing a lot of time on those straights to Oscar Piastri. We fought for position majority of the race with him. And the undercut that we did, I wouldn't really class it as an undercut, but we did jump a few positions, and ended up ahead of Oscar Piastri when he went in for his pit stop. Mick Schumacher for a moment, he was there fighting for points contention there for P10. I was watching him on the mini-map here and there. About 3/4 of the way through, he had retaken position against Yuki Tsunoda. And yeah, so just barely, just one position out of the points. He's sitting at 3 points right now for the driver standings. And got another 4 points for our team. So we're solidifying our position in P5 for the season, 8 points ahead of Alpine. And then yet again, Sergio Perez just out of reach ahead of us in the driver standings, as well as finishing in P5. I did better than I qualified. I wasn't really sure that was going to happen at the beginning of the race, but I did. But yeah, Sergio Perez is still doing better than us, as he's our active rival. But it still feels like Gasly is. But he unfortunately did not finish, as well as Oscar Piastri. So with that, we're gonna end the episode, and we'll see you guys in the next one for our home race in Miami.